Hello, I'm Daniela. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I slow stitch a spider web. I first start out by making a freehand design. Now, if you want it to be perfect and geometric, go right ahead and do that with your sketch. I like mine to be a little wonky. I like that rustic look. I think it just looks like something you'd find on the side of a barn or in a haunted house. After making the sketch, I stitch the outer spires, and then I connect them with just some lines, just meeting up. It's a very simple design. You can embellish it further with stitching your spider or adding a little fabric charm or lots of things like ribbon or even torn fabric. So let's get started. So to create my spider web, I have the page size that I want here. This is just my fabric backing. You can use this on any size fabric that you want to stitch on, or if you have a fabric book that's either square or any formation, this is great for that. This project is very flexible. I also wanted a black background, so I took this piece of black cotton fabric, and then if I was to fold it over, you could see the exact size of the page. I just had quite a bit of extra fabric that I wanted to leave, just so that I can decide if I want to fold it over or cut it. And so right now I'm just going to fold it over, and that will give me the height that I need for when I make my sketch. And really the sketch is the most difficult part of this project, and it's not even that difficult. Spider webs can be perfect or they can be imperfect, and really it's up to you what you want to do with that. If you want to make something very geometric and very perfect, then go right ahead and do that. And if you want something a little more, well, imperfect, then this is a great project for that as well. You can make a spider web very tight, and you can use a spiral and keep everything nice and rounded, and that's kind of whimsical and fun. But I want to create something a little more straight edged here. So I'm going to create just like a little spiral. I'm just using a white marking pen here because of my dark fabric. So I just want all my points to intersect right in that center line, and I can even have the exact amount, or I can just throw in a few lines here and there just so it's not quite so perfect. And then from there I just want to create straight lines matching each of those parts together. Now how far you stitch beyond that shape is up to you. I'm just creating straight lines, and then I'm going to create lines inside that as well. They're somewhat running parallel to the first line, but not perfectly. Since I'm using a water-soluble pen, I can change it around as well. And I'm just trying to get the feel of a spider web. It's asymmetrical and not perfect. And then maybe I'll put a spider somewhere else, maybe dangling from the web. So I'll just pull out those lines a little bit further and go in here. Now if you want your lines to be curved, that's another option that you have. And I'll show you that on another piece of fabric. So if you want to make a spider web but you have curved lines, you can create your initial intersection. You can make them whatever lines you want, straight or curved. And again, if they're not perfect, you can modify that. But then you want to just create that curve in between lines. And that creates a very interesting web as well. So you can get a lot of variation. And then from there, you'll go inside the web, somewhat parallel to the first line, and so on. So there are many ways to create that. I happen to like this rustic looking web. And then over here, I might put a little spider, but I have another video on how to create a spider. So from there, I would do that. Now right now I want to start stitching my web. And I like to start stitching these lines, these intersecting lines. So I'll come right here from this outer perimeter. Because I want that to look like a web, I'm going to use the stem stitch. So I'm just taking my embroidery floss, and I'm using 6 threads. It'll be very chunky. Another option would be to use 3 or 4 threads. So I stitch a loop, and then before I pull that loop tight, I just go in on that line and pull up my thread. And then from here, I'll stitch another one. And this gives me a nice continuous line. Now there are other stitches you can use. It doesn't have to look like a straight line. There's nothing wrong with using running stitches or a back stitch. It's just a different effect. I happen to like the stem stitch for the reason I mentioned, that I like that continuous line. I'll stitch all the way across, and then I'll come by and do all my lines. From there, I'll stitch in between. So I'm going to stitch all my intersecting lines, and I'll come back and show you the result. But this is a nice project to do because it's such a simple, repetitive stitch that you can do in front of the TV. I'm going to go sit outside in the nice weather and stitch all my lines. So as you can see here, I sewed all the intersecting lines. Because I wanted to make a little drop spider hanging down, I took this line and made it a little shorter, and I elongated this one. But all my stem stitches here are either 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, somewhere around there. I could add more if I wanted to, more of these spikes coming out, but I'm really pleased with the way this looks. So now I have the fun task of connecting these shapes. Once again, I like to start on the outermost point. I just like working my way in. And I'm going to come up here just in through that stem stitch. And then from here I'm going to make a stem stitch, or a series of them, to get to this point here, but they're going to be a little smaller. So instead of being 1/4 to 1/2 inch, my longest one is going to be 1/4 inch. And I'll just continue to make these stitches all the way until I get all the different layers to this web. Now the more layers you add, the more connecting layers here, the more intricate your spider web will be, and that'll produce a different result, whether you want something really whimsical, something really geometric, or whatever you're looking for, whatever your goal is. Now if you don't want to stitch a spider, you don't have to. You can leave it just as the web somewhere along your stitching. And this would be a great thing for crazy quilting, slow stitching, or just to add a little element to something, maybe even a shirt or a pair of jeans. It's just a fun little effect. Now I can either stitch my spider, which I'll link a video where I show you how I do that, or I can add a little charm. And I can also add some sticks, maybe, that will frame the spider web. Well, it'll look like the spider web is attached to those sticks. So that's another thought. But this is something that I play with after I create that actual spider web. I'll just make sure I have leftover thread so that I can attach that thread to the spider web. I may have to elongate some of these to connect the branches. So right now I'm going to continue sewing all the way around, connecting all these spikes together, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So here I've stitched all the way around, kind of connecting the spires so that it looks like a spider web. Now from here I can embellish it further. I can add a little moon, I could add a tree trunk and maybe some branches that the web is connecting to. I think I'm just going to make a little dangle here and add a little spider charm. So I'll just stitch a line, add the charm, and I'll show you what it looks like. I hope you found this video helpful, and it adds a little spookiness that you can add to your pieces to add a little element of Halloween. So that's how I create my slow stitch spider web. It's actually a pleasure to design and to create because I use the same stitch repetitively. It's just very soothing to do, and I like to do that outside. You know, you never know when a spider is going to crawl up on you. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for joining me today.